Hello and welcome to another edition of House of Wisdom Knife Review. So we're going to be reviewing the Grimsmo Norsman today. And no, you're not seeing double. It's a knife so nice I had to buy it twice. I bought this one on the secondary market because the prices have fallen so that the secondary market is within 10% of the new price. And then my lottery came up with the Grimsmo that I've been waiting for forever, it seems. So I got my opportunity to buy my own original directly from the Grimsmo. So I have two Norsman now. We're going to be taking a look at them. John and Eric Grimsmo make knives in Stony Creek, Ontario, Canada, and Barry and Aaron also help them out. They've been doing a YouTube channel on their knife making for a decade now. It started in 2008. They have two basic models of knives, the Norsman and the Rask. The Norsman is the first and largest of the knives. It's also the most iconic design, especially the blade shape, and it's going to be the subject of our video for today. First of all, and I don't usually do this, talk about the packaging, but whenever you get your Norsman, it'll come to you in packaging that looks like this. It's a little pelican case. It has a logo on the front, a sticker that is very well done, and there's such great detail and attention to detail in it, I had to show it to you. First of all, the top is just a egg carton thing, so it secures the knife well. But then in the place where the knife sits, there's a nice cutout for the knife and even for the pocket clip. It has the company's logo spelled out here with their maker's mark, and it has a T9 Torx driver and a place cut out for that. Interestingly, there are 4 basic screws on the Norsman. Each one uses a T9, so it's easy to take care of. And then they give you an 8cc tube of nano oil also to lubricate the knife. And then there's a little part placed for your finger here, and it even says lift here, and it has an arrow. And inside is the certificate of authenticity signed by Eric and John Grimsmo, and then a sticker that they give you. So every detail of their packaging of the product was well thought out, and I just really think that was professionally done. Well, let's get back to the Norsman. We'll talk about it. The blade length of the Norsman is 3.625 inches. The handle length is 5 inches. And this handle is done in something they call bronze purple. It's a combination of bronze and purple. And if you Windex it out, it looks more purple. And if you fingerprint it up, it looks a little more bronze. But that's a very interesting color that they have there. And their variety of finishes, which we'll talk about later. The other one I have, which I bought on the secondary market, is just a raw titanium stonewash finished with blue anodized hardware. Well, the total knife length is 8.625 inches and has a weight of 4.94 ounces. The blade is a stone-washed RWL 34 steel. It has a hollow ground with a CNC pattern. Each one of these lines is the pass from a CNC machine. There's another knife that did this that I want to compare it to. The knife I wanted to compare it to is the North Arm Skaha, and as you can see on the Skaha, they have these individual milling lines of the CNC machine where it grinds the blade rather than a traditional grind. So I'm just going to compare these two so that you can see the milling work on both of these knives and the similarities. Well, anyway, so it's got a hollow ground CNC primary grind. There's no sharpening choil on these knives. It just sharpens up until it reaches the plunge grind, and then they start sharpening, so that may be a little bit of a disadvantage. It has a recurved blade with a compound grind. The primary grind has a concave curve, and then the tip of the blade has a convex curve, which is interesting. You could do some scraping work with that if you needed to, and you want to use a $1,000 knife as a scraper. The spine of the knife is beautiful. It has a crowned spine until it gets to the tip, and then it has a thumb ramp on the proximal part of the side with a spine with a little bit of jimping for good purchase. The method of deployment of the knife is by flipper, and especially on my well broken in Grimsmo, you can use the thumb stud as a deployment method too. It has a unilateral thumb stud. The advantage is that since it has a Torx bit screw, if you're left-handed, you can move it to the left side, and if you're right-handed, you can leave it on the right side. And it's not just a token either. This is the clip side, and you have plenty of room to deploy it on a thumb stud if you're left-handed just like you do on the right-handed one. In some knives, on the left-handed side, they bring the lock bar up so high that you really can't access the thumb stud, but lefties, you're okay with this knife. The handle is a stone-washed 6AL 4V titanium, and in this one, it is raw titanium that's just a stone wash. As I mentioned before, in this one, it's that bronze purple, which sounds better than bronzepul, so that's what they called it, and it's really interesting, and it changes, it's constantly changing with your fingerprints, but it's a dark handle, and it looks really good. The handle comes in a variety of configurations. These handles are the smooth handles in different colors, but they also make it in a honeycomb, a reverse honeycomb, a diamond pattern. They have it in overlays, which include carbon fiber overlay, wood overlay, a glow-in-the-dark overlay, and a kyanite overlay. The construction of the knife has an open construction. It basically has a pivot and then two standoffs, so it's easy to clean out. The pivot uses an oval captive pivot that doesn't turn, at least in the later models of the Norsman, and then it is disassembled with a T9 Torx as well as the two body screws. Thumb stud is removed with a T9 also. So open construction. The pivot is oval, but in the initial ones they were round, much like the Rask. The Rask has a captive pivot too, but on the inside there's a milled shelf so that it doesn't spin whenever you undo its Torx bit pivot on the clip side also. This one, however, has an oval-shaped pivot, and I wanted to compare it with some of the other captive pivots. Here are a couple of other companies that have captive pivots. This is the Booz Blade Mini Arrow, and it has a tri-wing pivot so that it doesn't spin whenever you undo the Torx bit. And this is the Zero Tolerance 0460, and it has the Kai USA hexagonal pivot, which whenever you do undo its pivot, it doesn't spin either. So I really like it when knife makers make a pivot that is both interesting aesthetically and functional as well. And that's what the Norsman has. It has an oval pivot that won't spin. It's not circular, so you can undo the Torx bit and you don't have to have two wrenches on either side of the knife and have this delicate balancing act. You can just undo the pivot on this side and it works very well. The pivot runs on a caged ceramic bearing that is made in-house by the Grimsmo brothers, and they even write their name Grimsmo on the nylon disc that they print the pivot on. The lock of the knife is a frame lock, and it has an external lock bar cutout. There is no lock bar insert, but the lock bar is carbidized, and there is an over travel stop that is internally mounted. The pocket clip on the knife is a right-hand carry, tip-up only with hidden hardware, and has good traction and good release. The ergonomics of the knife are great. It has a 5-inch handle, so it will accommodate any hand, and whenever I grip it, I have a lot of handle left over. There's a place for your forefinger, and then the other fingers fit well. This handle fills out the hand very nicely. But the action is the star of this knife. It has this heavy blade, and it's machined perfectly, so it has this fall shut action. Another interesting component in the action is that its detent ball is flattened so that it provides minimal resistance whenever the knife closes and whenever the knife opens. The Grimsmo brothers aren't the first to do that. Jerry McGinnis flattens his detent ball also, and it really improves the action of a knife whenever you do that. The signage on the knife is minimal. On the show side, all you have is the Grimsmo maker's mark on the pivot, and then on the clip side, you have the Grimsmo's maker mark on the clip, and then you have the steel designation, RWL34, and then the lot number of knife, which in this instance is 868. So what do I think about the Grimsmo Norsman knife? I really like it. Are there opportunities for improvement? I guess there would be on any knife. Specifically on this knife, instead of using a lock bar interface, they just carbonize the lock bar face. Theoretically, the carbonizing can wear off over time, so that might be something that they may change. Although I just want to say there are a variety of world-class knife makers that just carbonize the lock face instead of putting lock bar inserts. For example, Tashi Barusha, Jerry McGinnis. You can go down the list. Mick Strider doesn't use a lock bar insert, and neither do the Grimsmo brothers. That might be something that they want to add with future iterations, though. And on the blade, there's no sharpening ricasso. The blade comes right up to the plunge grind, so whenever you sharpen the blade, you really have to be careful that you don't get up on this part. And that's just something that takes a little extra care. Maybe it's the design that they didn't want to interrupt the smooth line that existed there. But what do I like about the knife? Basically everything. I just love this knife. First of all, I love it for its uniqueness. Look at this blade. There isn't another blade that's like this. It is iconic. It is a blade that is special in itself. And the hardware, the screws. I'll get a close-up here. It's a Torx bit, which has a 6-sided star, and then they placed 6 little divots between the arms of the star. It just says, hey, we made these screws in our shop, and we're going to show it off. I really like that. And the handles. They're different. This one has that bronze opal color, which is really fascinating and interesting. But you can look on their website. They have basically a museum of Grimsmo handles and blades. And even though they've made, maybe 900 at this point of the Norsman, they can show you each one, and they have different blade treatments, different handles, and they try to make each one distinct and unique. So even though they're basically the same shape, each one acts and feels like you're getting a custom knife. And I like the pivot. I like the captive pivots so that it makes disassembly easy. It just takes a T9 Torx bit and you don't have to stabilize this other side. It just comes out on its own. And I like that all the screws are the same, and they include this T9 Torx driver so that you can take apart the standoffs, the pivot, and the thumb stud. All the external screws with just one Torx bit T9, which they include in their set. And I like their attention to detail. They have machining perfection, which gives it this wonderful fall shut smooth action, and even flattening off the detent ball. And the bearing discs. If you could open it up and look inside, you would see that they are engraved with Grimsmo on them, and I'll show a little picture in the upper right-hand corner here. And in the inside of the handle, it's inscribed Norsman, the month and year of creation, and then on the other handle, they have a large Norsman maker mark, which is like on the pivot here. And the screws, as I've mentioned, they have those little divots and their own proprietary screws so that you know that it's made by them. And I want to give a little nod to the packaging and presentation. They have their own special packaging with the Grimsmo Knives logo, and then they include for you oil and the T9 Torx driver, and everything is very professionally done, top of the notch with their packaging and presentation. And I like their business model. They have the maker's choice now, and now that they've paid off all their machines since they've made over $1 million in their company per their YouTube site, they never take your money now before they have a knife present. And the maker's choice, they get to make what they want. And I'm just happy because they get to go to work every day, and Eric and John just say, okay, what kind of knives do we want to make this week? And then that's what they make. And then they give you the chance to buy it if you like it or pass if you don't like it. And you don't have any disgruntled customers, and you're making a world-class product, which is exactly what you want to make. So in summary, the Grimsmo Norsman is an iconic design made with machining excellence. Aesthetically, it's a work of art. It's a fine sculpture. I think it's a world-class knife. Well, that's the review for today. In the comments section, tell me what you think about the Grimsmo Norsman. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next House of Wisdom knife review video.